Thank God above. God above. 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 Gangsters, cops, and politicians, get ready to rock on a mission. Each one of us shares our own vision. When I was on the yard, I went real hard. But I patrolled the streets, all the G's I meet. When I was on the yard, I went real hard. But I patrolled the streets, all the G's I meet. Well, got to stay woke. I like to thank God above. To thank God above. God above. To thank God above. God above. To thank God above. God above.
Saludos. Once again, it's your host, Gabe Morales. In this segment, we will cover gangs active today on the east side of the city of Los Angeles, as well as gangs in and around the unincorporated area of East LA. Many people lump these two areas together, but there is a separation of the two jurisdictions, mainly by Indiana Avenue, and LAPD patrols their areas of the city while the LA County Sheriff's Department patrols East LA. Of course, gangs often cross these law enforcement lines. It is important to note that most of the people living on the east side and living in East LA are good, hardworking people. But we must also not be in denial. Street gangs have affected the quality of life there for decades, and they mostly prey on Latino people. Let me start off by covering the Flats gangs. These gangs were historically part of the Liso Village government housing projects in Boyle Heights, located in the city of Los Angeles. Quattro Flats lies approximately 3 miles east of Los Angeles City Hall. The gang has been documented since the early 1900s, and the area initially had a lot of Russian immigrants as well as Mexican ones. The Aliso housing projects were originally built in 1942 for World War II military personnel, but later housed low-income residents, and the original buildings were torn down in 1999. But the city constructed a new housing project called Pueblo del Sol. Some of these gang members moved into this new housing. Quattro Flats has two nearby areas they claim. There's a small area between 1st and 4th, between Soto and Mott Streets, and a larger area located just west of I-5 from 1st up to Prospect Park with Eastside Breed Street and Eastside Tiny Boys gangs separating the two PF sections. A nearby gang is called Quattro Flats and located around 4th Street and runs into Pico Gardens. Quattro Flats and Quattro Flats got along for many years, but they have had some beefs in more recent years. A Quattro Flats gang member named Jose Smiley Saenz was wanted for many years, stemming from 2 murder charges of rivals, as well as being accused of committing 2 other murders. He was allegedly trained by Mexican drug cartels while he was on the run. He was also believed to have hid out in Canada and Central America and was captured in 2012 in Guadalajara, Mexico. He was extradited to stand trial and is still housed in the LA County Jail as of February 2022. As with any suspect, he is considered innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. The Mob Crew is a gang located in and around Aliso Village who did not want to join the Flats gangs. They claim a small area west of the 10 freeway and west of Quattro Flats and Quattro Flats. State Street locals are sometimes confused with Southside locals that exist in various parts of the country. They take their name from State Street, which brings up an old memory. Let me tell you a little story. I was doing a ride-along once with LAPD, and we drove into State Street territory where there was a crowd of about 10 young people, including a couple of females. Having worked at Folsom Prison, I always tried to avoid tunnel vision. The officer I was riding with dismissed the girls and told them to go away as he watched the males closely. Just before he did this, it looked to me like one of the guys made a handoff to one of the girls, who took off. The officer searched the males and found no contraband. I told him afterwards, I think the females took off with it. I was just an observer, not on duty. so I did not want to get too involved. But I recall this incident as a reminder not to overlook or underestimate the females. A government housing project called Ramona Gardens is the oldest type of housing in the East Los Angeles area. It was also built for families of the military in 1941. As World War II waned towards the end of 1945, most of the military families relocated and low-income families moved in. This is the neighborhood that my mentor, Robert Moco grew up in the 1950s. He, like me, did not join a gang. However, he grew up all around them. He joined the military and later became a police officer and was the very first coordinator of the California Gang Task Force that investigated the Mexican Mafia, as well as other prison gangs. The Hazard Barrio actually has two separate areas, Big Hazard and Little Hazard. While many believe it got its name from being dangerous, it really got its name from a park located at the end of Lancaster Avenue and Soto Street that is named after Henry T. Hazard, the 20th mayor of the city of Los Angeles. But indeed, over the years, it has been a very hazardous area and has been the subject of a past gang injunction. Hazard produced several members of the Mexican Mafia, such as Robert Robot Salas, who was involved in the shoe war at San Quentin Prison in 1968 versus the Nuestra Familia Mexicana. Deceased MA shot caller and longtime federal inmate Adolph Champ Reynoso was also from Hazard, as is Manuel Cricket Jackson. I discussed the role this gang had in the American Me murders in my segment on the Mexican Mafia that can be found on this channel. Eastside Barrio White Fence, or Cerca Blanca Spanish, is a predominantly Mexican street gang from the Boyle Heights area of Los Angeles. It dates back to the 1920s, and they have a long rivalry with El Hoyo Maravilla that is probably the oldest gang rivalry in all of California, maybe even the oldest ongoing gang rivalry in the entire United States. The gang was originally formed by young teens associated with the local Catholic Church. The gang was formed in the mid-1920s when there was an influx of Mexican immigrants into Boyle Heights, fleeing religious persecution in Mexico. Between 1926 and 1928, hundreds of families settled in Boyle Heights, which was predominantly a Jewish neighborhood prior to that time, and there were several synagogues there. The young boys of the families that attended this local Catholic church formed the gang that would eventually become White Fence. Allegedly, the gang was called that because of a white picket fence that ran along much of its territory, near the railroad tracks by the Los Angeles River, close to downtown. White Fence's original barrio was all of Boyle Heights, and White Fence still has a very strong presence along Lorena Street. And there was a gang injunction against this gang. Kilroy Roybal was a feared Mexican Mafia assassin who hailed from White Fence and later became a reborn Christian, speaking to youth about the ills of the gang lifestyle until his death. Eastside Evergreen is also an active gang in the Boyle Heights area. They attempted to move out to the San Gabriel Valley, but are not heard of much there anymore. There's also been a presence of Eastside Evergreen Flats in Washington State. I do believe they're connected, probably brought by one homeboy from that barrio. Evergreen will be for White Fence, Opal Street, KAM, and other gangs in the area. KAM, or Crazy Ass Mexican, was a party crew and tagger crew that eventually became a street gang. As years went along, more and more frequently, taggers began carrying weapons and shot at their rivals. These new tagger gangs called themselves tag bangers. CAM has been the subject of a gang injunction and controls a fairly large area from Cesar Chavez Avenue up to I-10 and is bordered on the west by Soto Street and on the east by Indiana. They are also sometimes found in other parts of LA County. Eastside Terrace has two areas they claim, one over by the Flats gangs and one east of the Matavia Gangs. I do believe they're connected. Maybe you guys can tell me if I'm right. They have various cliques, but the best known one is probably the Dukes. There's also been a few of these guys identified in Washington State. The Matavia Gangs cover a very large portion of East Los Angeles and are broken up into various cliques. Matavia predates the Mexican Mafia, but there have been a lot of Matavia gang members involved with La M over the years. When the Mexican Mafia started a taxation process in the early 1990s, Matavia resisted this process, and there was a green light put on them by the M for their rebellion. The Maravillas had to be separated from the Mexican Mafia and Sereno sympathizers in the LA County jail for many years. This green light status was no longer taken serious by many Maravillas, and today they can often coexist with Serenos in custody. Most Matavia gangs have fought with White Fence for decades, and not all Matavillas get along, but they will often unite in custody if faced with the bigger enemy. Now let me break down some of the different Matavia cliques. Juarez Matavia is located just south of I-10, with Alma being on the west and bordered by City Terrace Drive. Pomeroy Matavia is located just to the southeast of them. Gage Matavia lies between Cesar Chavez Boulevard on the south to Blanchard on the north, with Indiana on the west and Gage on the east, which is where it gets its name. Eastside Matavia Ripa is south of Cesar Chavez Boulevard and north of the 60 freeway. It is bordered by Indiana on the west and Gage on the east. El Hoyo Matavia is one of the oldest Matavia gangs. It has been around since the 1930s, and they had many MA members come from it. It was so named because it sat in a low-lying area, or a hole, an hoyo in Spanish. Today, its turf is located south of Belvedere and north of the 60 freeway. It is bordered by Gage on the west and Eastern on the east. Lopez Matavia claims an area north of Cesar Chavez Boulevard and south of the Biscaluz Sheriff's Deputy Training Center, with Eastern on its western border and the 710 freeway on the east. Rock Mata lies east of the 710 and runs over to Bleakwood on the east, with Cesar Chavez Boulevard on the south and Floral to the north. It was named after a big rock that was very visible in its area. Arizona Mara is located in the corner of the 710 and 60 freeways, with Belvedere Park on the east and Cesar Chavez Boulevard to the north. They are known as being the barrio of Mexican Mafia member Chato Sandoval, who sat on San Quentin's death row for many years and was instrumental in calming tensions between La M and the Maravillas when they had a green light. The Mariana Maravilla Ripa gang is sometimes confused with the Mexican Mafia because they use the two M's. They were around before the Mexican Mafia, since at least the 1940s. This clica is located south of the 60 freeway and north of Whittier Boulevard, with Eastern on the west and Atlantic on the east. The Marianos will fight 38th Street as well as the Lot, and have also clashed with Maravilla gangs such as Arizona Mara and Ford Mara. Ford Maravilla has the distinction of being the barrio that Mexican Mafia icon Joe Morgan was from. They occupy a small corner of turf bordered by the 710 and I-5 freeways, which reminds me, King Tacos is located not too far from there. Man, you gotta try King Tacos if you're in East LA. Fraser Maravilla is about twice the size of Ford, but not as well known. They are located to the east of Fort Mara. There are a few other Maravilla clicas I left out, but these are some of the main ones. Just as the Maravilla gangs had a green light by La M, a small barrio named Opal Street had a green light because they resisted taxation. They are named after Opal Street that runs through the middle of their barrio. Guerra Loma is located high above East LA in City Terrace. It has the distinction of being the barrio of the first major Mexican Mafia informant named Carlos Paife Ortega that my mentor Mocha Morel spoke to when the task force was first finding out about the Mexican Mafia out on the streets. This gang also produced original Mexican Mafia member Eddie Potato Nose Lorea. The Lot is known for being a very tough area south of the 60 freeway and bordered by Atlantic on the west and Garfield on the east. They also have another area they control in the City Terrace area. I was told once the lot was said to have been named after a vacant lot, yet others say it was named after Hillside Park by Van Pelt and Gifford Streets. To be honest, I'm not sure. Okay, lot homeboys, tell me which one is correct. They were first called Lot Stoners when the Stoners fad was big in the 1970s. In the early 1980s, Lot claimed Gage Avenue on the east to the 710 freeway, and about 50 homeboys would hang out to party every weekend, especially during summer months. Eventually, the Lot homeboys looked less like Stoners and more like Cholo gang members, as is what happened to Mid-City Stoners and Mata Salvatrucha Stoners. A lot of stoner gangs in the area got jumped into Matavia, and the rivalry was on with all of them. The Lot and Matavia do not get along. City Terrace is located in the northwest of Guerra Loma and the Lot. The City Terrace area is known for having some very nice views and has been depicted in several movies and TV shows. While there has been gang activity there in the past, just like most communities I've mentioned before, there are many good, hardworking people there trying very hard to improve its image and increase public safety. Barrio Nueva Estrada has been the subject of a past gang injunction and is located within the Estrada Courts housing projects. There are many colorful murals in this project, as there are throughout East LA and the east side of Los Angeles. I can't say that I've seen many V&E much outside of the Estrada Courts projects, but I did have Mexican Mafia shot caller Jimmy Smokey Sanchez in New Folsom in the early 1990s, as I spoke about in the Mexican Mafia episode that can be seen on this channel. It was also the barrio of M.A. dropout and informant Ernest Chuco Castro, who testified against his brothers in the RICO trials, as well as his recently murdered brother Eddie. Many believe Eddie, aka Deadeye, was killed because of his brother's actions. The King Cobras are a small but tightly knit gang located south of I-5, bordered by Eastern on the west and Downey Road on the east. They are known for being the barrio of Artie Guzman, who was a longtime MA member who committed a homicide for honorary godfather Joe Morgan. Well, I know I left out a lot, but I wanted to give a quick overview before I get busy. Keep those comments, likes, and subscribes coming. That's all for now, people. I hope you enjoyed this short episode. This is Gabe Morales. See you soon.
Like to thank God above. God above. Like to thank God above. God above. Like to thank God above. God above.